Hello and welcome to Just Ride Bikes. I'm David and you join me in the middle of Salisbury Plain, a vast expanse of gravel roads here in the south of England. I do have to watch out for the army playing with their tanks and big guns, but it's a great place for riding gravel bikes. So what I have for you today is a first ride impression on the latest SRAM XPLR products launched a few weeks ago. XPLR is a name for a suite of products coming from RockShox, Zip and SRAM, which is perfect for the demands of gravel riding today. I've just done a ride of about 2 hours in length with Stu from SRAM who delivered the bike today. So literally my first ride impressions before I drive home. There will be a more in-depth review in a few weeks time, so make sure you stay tuned for that if you want. But today, just give you some first impressions on what it's like to ride, the group set, the fork and the dropper post. So what I have here is a brand new 1044 12-speaker cassette and a brand new rear mech, here in Rival, but also available in Force and Red. The new 1044 fits in really neatly between the current 1036 and the Eagle Mullet 1050 and 1052, and looks perfect on paper for gravel. And then you might already have noticed it, the brand new RockShox Rudy Ultimate suspension fork. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, suspension is coming to gravel bikes. So a brand new fork designed from the outset, from the ground up, to be a gravel suspension fork. It's not a mountain bike fork shrunken down for gravel riding, designed from the outset. So this one here delivers 30 millimeters of travel. There is a longer travel of 40 as well. Clearance for a 50mm tyre, flat mount brake calipers with the bolts going in the front there, which you can see. And we have an air spring adjustable via an air valve on the non-drive side and a lockout lever on the right there as well. So that's the fork, and then we have the RockShox Reverb AXS dropper seat post. So the Reverb is a long running and really popular dropper post from the mountain bike world. We now have it on a gravel bike. This one delivers 75 millimeters of drop. It's also a short travel of 50, using both paddles on the levers to operate, and the same battery on the back as you get in the rear mech, so very easy to interchange the batteries and charge them up as well. All these products are bolted to a lovely Salsa Warbird carbon frame, which is fantastic news because I've never actually ridden a Warbird before. The Warbird, when it launched back in 2015 or thereabouts, I'll check my dates when I get home, was the first proper gravel race frame ever launched. So it really is a key frame in the development of gravel bikes. And it looks great, nice stealth black, understated logos, and a great showcase for the new SRAM XPLR products. The only product I don't have yet, due to supply issues unfortunately, are the brand new Zip 101 wheels, which have a new single wheel design borrowing from the 3.0 Moto mountain bike wheels. They will be coming very soon, but for now I'm slumming it on some 303S carbon wheels with a G40 gravel tyre front and rear, 40mm wide, tubeless, and about 30 psi front and rear for reference if you want to know. Now I don't have my scales to hand, so I'll weigh it when I get home and flash the weight up about here somewhere. For this size 56 without pedals, it doesn't feel heavy when I pick it up, and it didn't feel heavy when I was riding it just now for the last 2 hours. So that's enough detail. What's it like to ride? Do the gears work? Is the suspension any good? And do you need a dropper post on a gravel bike? Well, here are my first ride impressions. So let's start with gearing. And really this is a cassette, the 1044, that many of us have been waiting for. The current 1036, the biggest on the road side of things, isn't quite big enough for real gravel when you're riding off-road or riding with luggage on your bike. And while the mullet setup with a 1050 or 1052 with the Eagle rear mech does work really well, gives that massive range, but that mullet setup, as good as it was often overkill unless you're really riding the biggest, steepest climbs you can find. And here in the south of England, the climbs aren't really that steep. So that's where the 1044 fits in really nicely. For the largely flatter, rolling, and a few hills that I encountered on a 2-hour Salisbury Plain ride, the cassette delivered all the range I needed. The 44 was big enough on the steeper climbs, and the smooth progression from the 10 tooth for the first 5 or 6 sprockets, gave me that nice kind of cadence step I needed when we're going quite fast with tailwind, trying to keep up with stew. So no massive gaps, and really it worked flawlessly, to be honest. There's no issues with it at all. And although it's not the most exhaustive test, and more riding will be done on a wider variety of trails over the next few weeks as I get to know the group set and bike even better, I can already see this group set will fulfill the needs of many gravel cyclists on faster kind of road, off-road gravel trails like this, where you want that nice smooth progression at the bottom end for high speed action, but enough climbing range when you do find some bigger hills without going to the mullet setup. And as with a normal SRAM rival group set, the shifting was super fast, very quiet, got the same battery technology and the same chain management technology as well. So it's quiet, fuss-free, no issues at all. And I can't wait to really get to know the cassette and find its limits on steeper terrain, or see whether it is the perfect blend of range and also being kind of tightly packed for faster riding. So the RockShox Rudy suspension fork. Firstly, I think they've done a really good job on how it looks. We've got skinny 30mm tubes, nice tapered legs, and I'm not sure about this colour, but there is another colour option. But I think it integrates into a carbon fibre gravel bike like this really well and doesn't look madly out of place, but I'm sure you let me know if you feel differently down below. There's also no issue with the crown touching the down tube, plenty of clearance there. Got a nice external hose routing, flat mount with the bolts on the front, an easy to operate lockout lever as well. Just a really tidy, clean looking fork, plenty of clearance. You can fit a mud guard as well, so a really well thought out product. But what's it like to ride? Well, my first impression was you don't really notice it working, you don't really notice it there, but you do notice how smooth the front of the bike is. Some of the gravel tracks we rode are quite rough. I know on a rigid gravel bike there'd be more feedback coming through the handlebar, but this fork was really filtering out the impacts really well, and it works on the small stuff and the bigger stuff as well. I think the fact you don't really notice it working, you don't really notice it doing anything, is a really positive attribute, but it is delivering a smoother ride. That much is very true based on the first ride. And when me and Stu swap bikes, so I can see the fork working from further afield, you can really see how much it works even on the very small stuff. So it's always active and always working. But if you hit the road, smoother stuff, and you want to lock it out for sprinting, you can switch the lever and hey presto, it's locked out. But I think personally, I'll be keeping it open, but you know, I may change my mind over the next few weeks. I haven't really played around with the air pressure so much yet. It's set up with 150 PSI for a weight of about 73 kilos with a helmet, shoes, GoPro and food in my pockets and stuff. There's a small amount of sag when you sit on it, so the fork compresses a small amount, a few millimeters when you sit on the bike, and what that means is when the wheel falls into the dip, it extends so you get a smooth ride over all terrain. Like a mountain bike, you want a bit of sag to really kind of let the wheel track the terrain and follow the curves and bumps as you go along the trail. With such a small amount of travel, you might be worried about it bottoming out, like going through the full travel and clunking on the bottom out bumper. But even when it bottoms out, I didn't notice it. There's no clunk, no thud, no nothing to tell me I'd hit the limits of travel. The fork feels stiff when you're throwing it around the corners as well. So based on one ride, I am genuinely impressed with how well it works. And I wasn't expecting to say that. Now more testing will be done over the next few weeks and my opinion might change. But so far, based on this ride, I'm impressed with how smooth it is and how well it works and goes unnoticed. But you notice how smooth the front of the bike is compared to a rigid fork. So yeah, colour me impressed. So downsides, well, on a scale, this is going to be heavier than a rigid carbon fork, and the axle, the crown length will be longer than a rigid fork, although the front of the bike doesn't feel madly high at all. There's no space on the stem. It just feels like a really nice bike. And lastly, what about the Reverb Dropper seat post? Well, I'll be honest with you, the trails here on Salisbury Plain aren't super techy or super steep. So a few occasions when I really needed to use it. So I'll save my judgment on that for a future video, coming very soon when I ride some more technical terrains and really get to grips with it. There is an active ride feature where if you drop it 1mm below fully extended, you have a bit of suspension, and that's a really appealing feature. To have a dropper post that's also a suspension seat post does seem like a big bonus on a bike where you have a suspension fork. And it does work quite well. You get a bit of cushioning, a bit of squidge, which does match the fork quite nicely. However, the downside with dropping the seat post is clearly your saddle isn't at the optimum pedaling height. When you're on flatter, rolling gravel tracks, that does compromise your pedaling ability a bit. So that's a bit of an issue. But I am really intrigued by a feature, and it's something I will definitely get into a lot more in a future video. Tweak the air pressure, see whether you can use it as a suspension seat post all the time where it permanently dropped. I think there's some interesting potential here, but so far, well, I'll be honest, I've not had the time to really use it. I need to find some better trails to really get to grips with it, but an interesting development for sure. I do like the fact it's a wireless setup, so no hose through the frame like getting a mountain bike, and a removable battery on the back. So as a product, it works really well. But whether it's a useful addition to a gravel bike remains to be seen. My verdict is out on that. Those then are my first ride impressions on the brand new SRAM XPLR gravel products with the new 1044 cassette, the new Rudy Ultimate suspension fork, and the new Reverb Dropper post. I also have the new Zip XPLR handlebar and the G40 tyres, which I'll also be reviewing in due course. There will be a more in-depth review on these new products and also the Warbird frame as well, because as I mentioned earlier, I'd never ridden a frame before, so really excited to see what it's all about on my local gravel tracks. But it's been a really good, fun ride and a very illuminating ride as well, especially around this suspension fork. I think it's a really exciting product, and I can't wait to find out more about this product over the next few weeks. So make sure you stay tuned to my channel if you want to get my final thoughts on this fork. And as always, do let me know what you think of it down below. Anyway, that is all for now. Hopefully you enjoyed watching this video, and if you did, hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't already. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter for more behind the scenes of the current bikes I'm testing, and I'll see you all again very soon. Thanks for watching.